Hello, my name is Charles Vance. Do you know that people are not destroyed for lack of resources? There's tons of resources in the earth today, but the Bible says people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hope you'll stay around for the next few minutes. I'm along with Chief Strategist Terry Sacka today on the wealth transfer. Glad to have you along, Terry.
Hello. I'm excited to get into this one. Lack of knowledge is very imperative, and I think it's the lack of knowledge we've had for, I would say, maybe a decade or so in our country. And the people have been missing out on opportunities, and we want to bring that type of knowledge to them.
Absolutely. If we don't learn the importance of what's going on in the financial system in the world today, we're going to be destroyed. It's not a lack of resources. It's not a lack of the ability to have something or to have the resources, but it's the lack of knowledge to gain the resources. And I see so many people doing that. Terry, you know, in some of the most poverty-stricken countries in the world, there are some of the greatest resources, but yet the people are not tapping into those resources or taking advantage of it. It's people with knowledge of those resources and how to tap into them. Those are the people that are the wealthy people.
And you know, and here in the United States, we're talking about, I saw a special saying that we're becoming more educated as adults. But yet, as children in our high schools and as our young adults, we're not being taught proper finance. So we're not teaching them about credit. We're not teaching them about investment properly. They're given their version of what you should be doing. And if you've noticed, we've had a dramatic decrease of our wealth and what we're seeing as a standard of living as well.
Oh, how do you explain that to us? Because you might say that in a general sense, and people might say, well, hey, you know, we're living pretty much the same standard we've been, maybe doing a little better.
Oh, they think they are, and we have, but I think what we're going to see going forward, the amount of times you go out to dinner to eat, the amount of stuff you're going to be able to buy, clothes and maybe gadgets or maybe even take trips, we're going to see the ability to do that decrease rapidly. And people are going to be quite surprised when it comes.
When you say those statements, you're making that statement really for just the general public in general, people in general.
I speak a lot. When I speak, I try to speak as we the people. It's we the people. I'm here purely for we the people. I'm not interested in the government's angle. They're supposed to be for us, but they're not. I'm here for us, the average people, that what are we doing with our savings? How are we saving it going forward? How are we going to benefit our children and our children's children as far as the inheritance goes? And I think it's very important to understand economically what really is going on. And I know last week we transitioned talking that we were going to mention a currency war. And I think that's that's going to kind of sound foreign to some people. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're going to be quite ready to hear that.
You mentioned, right before we started the program today, we were talking, you mentioned a scripture out of Proverbs that has to do with honest and dishonest.
Proverbs 11:1. Proverbs 11:1 is, do not partake in a dishonest weight and measure. It's an abomination to the Lord. We are to be partaking in honest scales. Well, paper money has been dishonest.
I want to interrupt you because I want people to understand what you're saying. When the Bible was written thousands of years ago, that book of Proverbs, it was talking about people setting up a little scale. People have probably seen little pictures of them.
Right.
And you take a weight of a certain weight and put it on one side of the scale, and when they were measuring silver and gold or something that was of precious value that was a weight measurement, then they would put it on the other side. People that were dishonest would do something dishonest like shaving those weights off, correct?
Yeah, good point, Charles. I like that because when you're shaving off the weight like that, that's a very good point. In our paper money system, when they grab me that dollar bill, for instance, in our paper money system, this used to be gold and silver. That's what that was. Mm-hmm. So
it could be exchanged for gold and silver.
It was exchanged for gold and silver.
Right.
Back in the day, it really was gold and silver. But then they became paper. What they're doing to this paper is they print it, and they print it out of nothing. So it's not backed by anything of value. And so as they print one more dollar, every time they print one more dollar, they're shaving away part of that weight in the system. It's very dishonest because at one point, You know, a great example, at one point, you know, this dollar bill would buy you 5 loaves of bread, right?
I remember that.
Now you
Honestly,
can't.
when I was a kid,
Now you
do
can't
that.
even buy 1 loaf of bread. It costs almost $3-4 for the same quality loaf of bread. So it's dishonest in the sense that they've taken what it was supposed to be in value and they've whittled away by printing, and they've printed trillions over just the last few years. So that's very interesting because I find that dishonest. Now, honest scales are a delight to the Lord. What's honest? Honest is silver, you see? Silver and gold. Why? There's only 1 ounce of silver is 1 ounce of silver, 1 ounce of gold is 1 ounce of gold. You can't make silver. God gave it to us. He gave us dominion over the earth, and in the earth are these resources. So there's a finite supply.
So when we begin to talk about this, we're actually talking about something that's tangible or
Yes.
something that has no tangible value. I mean, this is basically an IOU.
It's an IOU. Right?
And if an IOU has any value, it has to have someone that wrote the IOU that actually holds some tangible items. And our U.S. government is having these notes printed more and more, and they have nothing more to back up these notes with. So they're writing more IOUs, but yet at the same time have nothing to pay the IOUs with.
Yes.
That's why we've gone from, this was a copy of a gold certificate, which actually could be exchanged for gold. The one you had a moment ago was a silver certificate, which said you had to pay to the bearer on demand this much gold or this much silver. Now they're called Federal Reserve notes.
Interesting.
Yes,
Yes.
and the Federal Reserve note is everything that the federal government has that is of tangible value. That's what backs this money. So you certainly can't take a Federal Reserve note up to the government in Washington, D.C. and say, I want $20 worth of the property here, because probably that property has liens against it as well. We're in debt how many trillions of dollars now?
We're at $16.5 trillion now, and they're talking about an emergency increase to would make it 16, 17, 18, 19 trillion.
No, they just did an
quickly.
increase, didn't they?
No, they're going to debate that soon. It's
Oh, okay.
coming. We'll get into that in further weeks too.
Okay.
But it's coming in the debate. And now we just had this fiscal cliff that we talked about. And the fiscal cliff will show, I believe that'll be probably next week. We'll get into some of the charting on that. But the fiscal cliff didn't produce really anything of value. But the Americans, you see it, everyone's paycheck is less. You're paying more taxes now. So our taxes are going up, spending's not going down, and so we're starting to see that there's an issue here with a big scenario drama, but yet it produces no results.
Hey, I want to mention real quick before we, I don't want to forget this because we were forgetting these on the last programs. This is a package of material. You own an assets metal company, Cornerstone Asset Metals, and the purpose of this program is to educate people concerning tangible assets, and we want you to be aware of what's going on. This thing is full of information. I'm telling you, you're going to be just blessed tremendously to get this packet. It doesn't cost you a penny. All it costs you is a couple minutes to either get online or make that toll-free phone call. And again, there's page after page of information about what's going on financially in the world today. There's charts in here, some things that will it'll give you an education. You don't need to be destroyed for a lack of knowledge when it comes to finances. You need to have information, and you can get it, and you don't have any excuse now, okay? So you can call the toll-free number, just say, I want the free information packet, and we'll make sure we get this right back out in the mail to you.
Yeah, it's very important to knowledge. I come in, I'm an analyst and a strategist in this field, and I just find it very important that we, the people, understand what our monetary system is really doing and not what the government's projecting that it's doing,
right,
or the CNBC types are projecting that it's doing. And so, we want to talk about the currency war and what does that really mean to people. They're talking about the fact that we're in an economic crisis. People think we're in an economic crisis. But what they don't understand is this is not as much an economic crisis as they think. And the debasement of our currency is not because we need to survive or to get the economy going. That's the title given publicly. What really is going on is something that happened 2 other times in history, and it's a currency war. We in the West, what does that mean is we in the West and our currencies, we're trying to devalue those currencies to force China and other countries to increase the value of theirs. And Japan's the #1. They're really racing to the bottom.
Now, who's doing that? I mean, who's making the movement take place?
The governments are doing it by printing money.
Okay. So the more
spending money.
Okay. So the more money that's printed
and spent,
it's making an offset between, say, our currency and China's currency.
That's right. The more money we print and the more money we spend makes our dollar less in value. And how do we know that? The things we buy, the services we try to go out and get are more and more expensive. Everything we buy is more expensive. It's because they're printing more money and they're debasing the actual value of it. But it's not just the United States, it's the entire Western Hemisphere, and Japan is really racing to the bottom. They've all decided if one's going to do it, the other one has to do it in order to compete. And what does that mean, compete? It's all about exports. It's business. If our currency is too expensive, they would just go to Europe and buy the same refrigerator because their currency is cheaper. So the product would be cheaper.
So that's probably the reason then, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the reason we're buying so much product from China.
There you go. We are buying everything from China, right?
Yeah,
I
pretty much.
think your coffee mug is probably made in China.
Yeah, your iPad, your telephone.
Everything is made in China. Why?
Most of your clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is where it is. Now, everybody thinks, well, we need China, they need us, and this is just one of those symbiotic relationships. You're going to be surprised. This is war now. China is a dominant force coming up here, and we're going to talk more about that as well. But China, the reason they make everything is it's cheap. Their currency is very, very cheap. So we can buy a bicycle at Walmart for $120, where if it was made somewhere else, it may cost you $300. And so if China's currency is that cheap and ours is expensive in value, we can't make those bikes because they're too expensive. So we have to buy them from China. So what the West is doing is they're debasing their currency, meaning they're devaluing it, they're making it worth less, to force China to increase their currency. I don't really think China's going to, by the way. They're pretty stubborn.
So by doing so, that would cause more manufacturing jobs to come back to the United States.
Thank you, Charles.
Because it would cause the value of our currency to be more equalized.
Yes.
With foreign countries such as China and whoever else we might
yes,
buy
and you know what?
from.
Matter of fact, I tell you what, to all these Midwest people, all of these people that complain about jobs being shipped overseas, and they want to beat up on one side or the other, and they're saying you're shipping jobs overseas. You know who's shipping jobs overseas is the government by debasing our currencies, and they're saying they're trying to bring it back. But these jobs being put overseas, we can't get it back if China's currency is cheap. So there's a race to lower ours. Now you try to say, oh well, that's good. They're on our side. Well, here's the catch: our government is debasing our currency in order to try to bring business to our country for exports. But you know who gets hurt?
Will it be the average homeowner, taxpayer person walking on the street every day?
The saver, the retirement account.
Yeah, when you stick money back in
the IRAs. I've worked 25, 30 years for my retirement. They're debasing my currency. My few $100,000, $50,000, whatever in a retirement account is worth less.
And we've seen that happen a bunch.
Oh, there's no doubt. In the last 10 years alone, $10,000 saved 10 years ago in paper money is only worth $6,000 today.
You're talking about same purchasing power.
Same purchasing
that it had 10 years ago.
Yeah, so basically you take your dollar, 10 years ago you stuffed it away, saved it. Today, the $10,000 is only worth $6,000 because everything we buy is a lot more expensive.
And that came because of the devaluing of our money by printing more money.
Yes, it's this currency war. And now how that hurts more than ever, it's not just that products and services are more expensive. Your IRAs and 401k retirement accounts are going down in value because they're not buying as much. That same $10,000 10 years ago in cash that's now worth $6,000, if you put it in a tangible asset like silver, it's worth $100,000 today.
Just 10 years of movement.
10 years of movement.
Now, it's not because gold and silver has risen in value.
That's right.
Although it feels like that.
Right.
Because we see people saying, well, gold's selling for and silver's selling for, and they'll give a price, but it's really relevant to our dollar bill. It's in a relevant manner that they're saying that, because really what they're trying to do is make the dollar bill stay the same, or make you think it's staying the same.
Excellent point.
And something else is going up or something else is going down. That's not really the standard. This I'm going to reach across in front of you. This is not really the standard when it comes to the world, or when it comes to tangible value. This is not really the standard. We're trying to make, or the government, I should say, and the Federal Reserve banking system, World Bank, IMF, they're trying to make this feel like this is the standard, that your paper currency is the standard, and everything else is either moving up or moving down. The fact is, this is what's moving, because the more of this they print, the farther this goes down. And it's making silver and gold look as if it's increasing in value, or any tangible asset that retains its value. It makes it look like it's increasing in value. Because for a long time I didn't understand what people were saying when they'd say, well, gold is up or silver is up or whatever the thing is. What it amounted to was this was moving. The value of this paper currency is moving.
That's great. That is so good that you bring that up, because people think gold and silver are investments. That right there alone is a mischaracterization of what it is. Gold and silver haven't gone up in value. It's the paper money that goes down in value that forces those assets to go up. So if you're putting your stock in gold and silver, if you're putting your savings in gold and silver, for instance, a lot of people put their IRAs, for instance, in physical precious metals IRAs. You could do it with no penalty. It doesn't cost you any consequences. You could roll over your IRAs or 401ks right into a precious metals IRA. So instead of saving their retirement money in paper dollars or the stock market, they save it with physical asset, hard asset, gold and silver. Now, the reason they're doing that is people believe more that the paper dollar is going to lose a lot of value in the future because of our economic problems, our entitlement programs, our money printing. And you're exactly right. Gold and silver doesn't move. It's the dollar that moves, and I contend because of this currency war, the dollar is going a lot lower because China refuses to increase the value of theirs. And if you don't want to believe it from me, Governor Mitt Romney, when he was running for president, said the first thing he would do as president would be to label China as a currency manipulator. There's something extremely real about what I'm saying, but nobody talks about it, but we're here to give the truth.
If people were to understand the value that tangible assets had relative to paper money, people would do something to wake up. There would be a wake up. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs, he really gets kind of rude when he starts asking the sluggard, how long are you going to sit and do nothing? And a sluggard is just a lazy person that's content, just sitting, doing nothing. He said, how long are you going to sit? He said, all you've got to do is just nod your head a little bit, nod off to sleep. And he said, poverty is going to come upon you. And the same thing is going to happen to people if they don't wake up and realize the devaluing that's going on the U.S. currency.
Yes, Charles, they've got to wake up. Wake up, America. It's time.
See,
silver's up 1,000%. Your dollar's lost 40%. What are you doing?
Tell them again. Wake up.
Wake up. This is not an investment. It's protection, preservation. We'd like to show you a chart, and this is not coming from us. I want to show you a chart. It's a 200-year history. Look at this chart right here. Now, if you go to the far left, that's the beginning. This is a 200-year history of America. If you've noticed, the little black line in the middle, the era, that first 100 years of America on the left, you see it's kind of consistent in the green coloring. That's when we were dominant on gold and silver. By the way, in Greek, the dollar means grains of silver, grains of gold. That's what this country is supposed to be backed by. If you notice back then, before the Federal Reserve came into play, we were consistent. We had ups and downs, but we stayed and maintained because our value was based on our gold and silver holdings. Where that arrow starts, right in the middle of that chart, is where the Federal Reserve was created. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You see these three unique mountains and valleys? It shoots up and then falls down. The first one, the Great Depression. Interesting, isn't it? The Federal Reserve came in. We went to World War I immediately. How convenient. We put tons of printed money into the system for the war, and then look at where the spike happens. And then they realize, uh-oh, we've put too much money into the system, so they take the money out of the system, and look at that crash straight down. We all know very well, if anything, we've heard about the Great Depression. That's exactly what that was. And then we stumble along there for a while, and then you see the line rise up again. Now you got those red lines. Those red lines are just trend lines, a 100-year trend line. Conveniently, you notice how the second mountain hits the red line. That was in the 70s when we came off of the gold standard. When President Nixon said, we need to print a lot more money, we don't have enough gold, and they used the excuse that the world was manipulating the currency value by selling gold in the system. There's plenty of excuses for it, but it was a way to be able to print a lot more money. Well, back then, if you get into a gold and silver, this is a Dow gold ratio. In the first one, you had 14 ounces of gold and then 30 ounces of gold per share of the Dow. But I don't want to get too complicated. I want to point out the mountains. The second mountain, and then that's when our currency was booming. You remember in the 70s and 80s the inflation we had?
It's crazy.
19% interest rates, right?
21%
right
here, yeah.
That was because we had too much money in the system. We came off the gold standard, started printing billions and billions of dollars, and we threw it out there. And then you see the crash on there. Now, the trend lines are established. Do you see the third mountain? Look at all the way down it went. You see how it went lower the second time? And then it rose all the way up, and you see how it went higher the third time? Do you know what date that third one is when it hit that red trend line? 9/11. Right around 9/11. And now we're on the motion of trajectory coming back down. How convenient, before the Federal Reserve was created, we were pretty consistent, and now we had three very unique gyrations. Ladies and gentlemen, what those three mountains are in those valleys, those are currency wars. Currency war the first time, the second time with Germany, the first time with Germany, and the second time it was the same thing, it was with Europe. These are currency wars. This time it's with China. So we're going to devalue, they're pulling money out, we're going to devalue that dollar and to the point where we force China up. So we can end that chart. But what that chart says, that's a 100-year chart. Those three specific points were actual currency wars. The Fed put money out, and then we were competing with the world. They yanked the money back.
To the average person that doesn't study any of this, doesn't look at any of it, doesn't listen to any of it, what's it mean to them?
It means this time around, that trend line is going to go down more. It means it will take more gold, or put it this way, the Dow Jones and gold will be equal in value at one point. Where that number is, I don't know. My guess, 7,000. Gold will be 7,000 an ounce one day, as the Dow Jones will before this thing stops and turns around. They're trying RH force China's currency up, and China is stubborn. And so they decided, let's print, spend to try to force that hand. It's vital people understand protecting your IRAs, being educated with information about this, because what it means to you, your standard of living during this current currency war will decrease dramatically. And if you want to know how, ask people who were trying to survive in the 70s when gas lines and 19% interest rates. That's what's coming in the future here.
And unless people prepare themselves, because
That's
there
right.
is going to be a group of people that are prepared that will not have to endure what other people are enduring just simply because, and again, it's a lack of knowledge. It gets back to Scripture.
Those will perish for a lack of
Yeah,
knowledge.
not because of a lack of resources,
Not because of a lack of resources.
but because of a lack of knowledge.
That's right.
I really want to encourage people to get this folder. It's free. It's post-paid. There's no strings attached. It is packed full of information. This stuff is going to help give you an education. This is stuff that you can sit down in your armchair in the evening, look through, read. If you want more information, you can contact Cornerstone Asset Metals. They have people. Terry, you actually even take some of these phone calls.
I try to. I would love to talk to everybody, but we have wonderful people that will talk to you, help educate you. They'll even pray with you. I mean, we are a on fire Christian organization, but we really think it's important to educate we the people. It's time we the people wake up. We need to be educated with information. I don't care what they do as far as gold and silver with us as a company. It's really about the information. Just get it somewhere. Get some tangible assets somewhere. And then change your focus on what you're doing.
And then do something.
Do something. Don't stay with the traditional stock market and think it's going to advantage you. This currency war is real. China has hedge funds and sovereign wealth funds all over the world. This is the BRIC nations, ladies and gentlemen. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They have forged an agreement. They do not use the dollar anymore. This is a serious financial war.
American dollars.
They do not use American dollars in
trade with.
And they used to.
Yeah.
This is very real. They don't want to talk about it that way, and you better get knowledge about it.
We've got 1 minute. What are we going to talk about next week?
I would like people to know next week we're going to get into the debt ceiling. You're going to hear a lot about it in the news. This currency war is the reason we're in this situation. Next week, we're going to show you what's coming up in Congress and what the government's trying to do with the debt ceiling, meaning they want the ability to print unlimited dollars and borrow unlimited money. It's going to come to an end soon. Are you prepared? Do you have the proper information to protect and preserve your assets for your family's future?
Well, you need to get ready. Make sure that you contact Cornerstone Asset Metals for the free packet. It's just an educational packet. It's going to change your life. You can call or you can log on to the website, either one. Make sure you do that. We're on at this same time every week, so tell somebody about the program. If you can't get to it, DVR it so that you can watch it later. Terry and I will be back next week. Have a great week. See you then.